Let me talk to someone who's been wondering why the pressure in your life has been so intense. You've been walking through seasons that don't make sense. You've been praying, believing, showing up, standing strong, but still suffering. You're not weak. You're not forgotten. You're not cursed. You're called. There's a reason the pressure in your life feels so relentless at times. A reason the attacks come from every angle. A reason why just when you thought you had found your footing, the ground starts to shake again. It's not always because you're doing something wrong. Sometimes it's because you're doing something right. Strength attracts spiritual resistance. The greater the weight on your life, the greater the warfare that comes against it. The enemy doesn't waste time on what isn't a threat. And when you begin to step into your purpose, you also step into the crosshairs of spiritual opposition. You have to understand that the enemy of your soul isn't just fighting you because of where you are. He's fighting you because of where you're going. He sees the impact you haven't even made yet. He sees the lives that will be changed through your obedience. He sees the freedom on the other side of your faith. And because of that, resistance rises as you do. It's not personal, it's spiritual. And it's not because you're weak, it's because your strength carries kingdom consequences. The moment you begin to walk in your identity, expect the intensity to increase. The enemy doesn't panic when you're passive. He doesn't panic when you're confused, distracted, or stuck in shame. But the moment you begin to shake off the lies, the moment you begin to believe the truth of who God says you are, the moment you begin to move forward with confidence and clarity, that's when the resistance starts to rise, because the enemy knows that a strong, healed, focused person is dangerous. A person who has learned to worship through the wounds, a person who has learned to pray through the pain, a person who has learned to fight with faith, that kind of strength can't be stopped, only resisted. And that resistance doesn't always come in dramatic, obvious form. Sometimes it comes in the form of distraction, things that drain you quietly. Sometimes it comes in the form of discouragement, lies whispered to your heart at your lowest moments. Sometimes it comes in the form of delay, waiting that wears you down. And sometimes it comes through people, voices that challenge your progress, question your worth, or misunderstand your motives. But underneath it all is a spiritual reality. Your strength is stirring up opposition. You see, strength isn't just about muscles and milestones. It's about resilience. It's about obedience. It's about faith that doesn't flinch under fire. And the stronger that becomes in you, the more hell will try to shake it. Because every time you choose joy in the middle of sorrow, every time you forgive when it would be easier to be bitter, every time you show up when you'd rather shut down, you're declaring war on the darkness. You're making a statement that your faith is real, that your calling is active, that your life is aligned with a purpose greater than your pain. The resistance you're feeling is not a sign of failure, it's a sign of focus. It means you're locked in. It means you're tapped into something bigger than yourself. It means you're being refined for something that matters. And sometimes the enemy will try to convince you that the pressure is proof you're not strong enough, when in reality, it's confirmation that your strength is being recognized. You're not fighting just for yourself. You're fighting for everything connected to your calling, for the freedom of others, for the legacy you'll leave, for the glory of God displayed through your perseverance. That's why the stronger you become in spirit, the more strategic the resistance becomes. The enemy shifts from attacking your actions to attacking your mind. He wants you to question yourself. He wants you to feel overwhelmed. He wants you to second guess your growth. But strength isn't just about pushing forward, it's about standing firm. It's about saying, I may be pressed, but I'm not crushed. I may be weary, but I'm not quitting. I may be under attack, but I'm still advancing. Spiritual resistance isn't always a roadblock. Sometimes it's a mirror. It shows you how far you've come. It shows you what you're capable of. It shows you that you're not who you used to be, because the old you would have quit by now. The old you would have shut down. But the current you, the strong you, is still standing, still seeking, still growing. And that's why resistance comes, because your strength threatens darkness. Your strength shifts atmospheres. Your strength disrupts generational cycles. Your strength is the answer to someone else's prayer. Your strength is carrying something sacred, something that matters, something that's worth fighting against. There are some things you can only learn in the fire, some revelations that only come in the wrestling, some authority that only rises from the ashes of what tried to break you. Suffering is not just about enduring pain, it's about discovering power. The kind of power that doesn't come from titles or platforms, but from scars and silence, from the hidden places where God does his deepest work. Suffering doesn't disqualify you from being used by God, it qualifies you. Because there's a spiritual weight, a divine credibility that only suffering can produce. You can speak truth from your head, but you minister healing from your wounds. People can quote scripture, but only someone who's walked through the valley with God can carry that scripture with authority. It's one thing to say God is faithful, and another to say I've seen his faithfulness when everything around me fell apart. That kind of authority doesn't come cheap. It's forged in tears, stretched in waiting, and tested in silence. But when you've suffered and still chosen to stand, when you felt abandoned but still held on to faith, when you've lost everything but didn't lose your worship, something eternal is built inside you. Suffering breaks pride. It exposes every illusion of control. It removes the masks we wear and brings us face to face with our real selves. Fragile, uncertain, desperate for hope. And it's in that place, the vulnerable, raw place, where God begins to shape something powerful. Not a strength that pretends, but a strength that bleeds and still believes. That kind of spiritual authority doesn't need to shout to be heard. It doesn't need to prove itself. It carries a quiet confidence because it knows what it has survived. When you've suffered deeply, your prayers change. They're no longer rehearsed or performative. They become groans too deep for words. They become cries from the core of your soul. And it's there in the depth of your desperation that heaven leans in. God doesn't ignore brokenness. He moves through it. He steps into pain, not away from it. And what you once thought would destroy you, he uses as a doorway to revelation. You begin to hear him more clearly because suffering removes the noise. You begin to trust him more fiercely because pain teaches dependence. The people with the most spiritual authority are often the ones who have bled the most in secret. They're the ones who face storms. No one applauded them for surviving. They've walked through wilderness seasons with nothing but a whisper from God, and it was enough. They've learned how to worship without answers, how to believe without evidence, and how to stay when everything in them wanted to run. That's why their words carry weight. That's why their presence shifts atmospheres. Not because they're perfect, but because they've been broken and didn't give up. Suffering gives you a language for pain that religion can't teach. It gives you eyes to see the hurting that others miss. It builds compassion in you that can't be faked. It tears down the arrogance that often hides behind performance and replaces it with humility that heaven can work through. You no longer approach people with judgment, you approach them with mercy. Because you've needed mercy. Because you've been at the end of yourself and found God waiting there. That changes how you love. It changes how you lead. It changes how you speak life into others. Spiritual authority is not about being loud, it's about being rooted. And nothing drives your roots deeper than suffering. When everything familiar is stripped away, when your plans fall apart, when your identity is shaken, when your faith feels like it's hanging by a thread, and you still hold on, that's where authority begins to grow. Not on the mountaintops of success, but in the hidden valleys of surrender. That's where your anointing is multiplied. That's where your wisdom is sharpened. That's where your voice begins to carry the weight of heaven. You begin to realize that suffering wasn't punishment. It was preparation. It wasn't the end. It was the excavation of something buried deep within you. Your suffering has a sound. It has a message. And now when you speak, your voice echoes with the authority of someone who has seen darkness and still believes in light. Who has walked through fire and still lifts their hands. Who has questioned God and still chooses to trust Him. Who has died to themselves and been resurrected into purpose, who has been crushed yet carries glory, because it's through suffering that your heart is stretched enough to carry the weight of what God has called you to steward. Some of the fiercest battles you fight are the ones no one sees. The struggles behind closed doors, the tears shed in secret, the prayers whispered when the world is asleep. These are the moments that shape you more than any public victory ever could. Silent battles reveal sacred strength because they are the crucible where faith is forged, character is refined, and true power is born. It's easy to mistake strength for what's visible, loud triumphs, bold declarations, and outward success. But the real strength is quiet, persistent, and unseen. It is the strength that carries you when no one is cheering. It is the strength that keeps you standing when your soul is weary. It is the strength that whispers, "Keep going," even when your voice is barely a breath. These silent battles are the proving ground of your spirit. They test your endurance in the absence of applause, challenge your faith in the absence of answers, and stretch your hope when circumstances seem impossible. There is a sacredness in this kind of struggle because it strips away the distractions and forces you to confront your deepest fears, your rawest emotions, and your most honest prayers. It is in this sacred silence that God's presence becomes most palpable, not in the noise of the crowd, but in the stillness of your heart. Here, you learn that strength isn't about how loudly you can fight, but how quietly you can persevere. When you face battles silently, you learn resilience. You learn how to keep going even when the pain feels endless. You learn how to worship when your heart is breaking. You learn how to trust when doubt is screaming. This strength is sacred because it is not self-generated. It is not prideful or boastful. It comes from a deeper source, a source that sustains you when your own strength is gone. It is the strength of God working through your weakness, the power of the Spirit lifting you above your circumstances, and because it is sacred, it transforms you. It softens the hardness that struggle can bring and replaces it with grace, compassion, and a fierce love that only those who have battled in silence can understand. Silent battles also reveal the hidden warriors among us. They expose the depth of courage that does not seek recognition but persists because it must. They unveil the quiet faith that does not need an audience but continues because it believes in unseen promises. These warriors may not be loud or flashy, but their strength carries the weight of generations. Their endurance inspires even when they don't speak. Their integrity shines in the shadows, and their testimony becomes a beacon for those who walk similar paths, proving that sacred strength is not about public approval, but about personal victory over the unseen. There is a unique power in the silence because it cultivates humility. When no one is watching, your motives are laid bare. Are you holding on for applause, or are you holding on because you know there is a purpose beyond the pain? Are you fighting to prove something to others, or are you fighting to become who you were created to be? Silent battles force you to reckon with these questions. They remove the facade and reveal the true heart of the fighter. And in this revelation, you discover a sacred strength rooted not in performance, but in authenticity. This authenticity connects you to others who are struggling silently and builds a community of warriors bound not by noise, but by shared faith and mutual encouragement. The quiet moments of struggle are often the most transformative because they invite reflection and growth. In the stillness, you can hear the whispers of God more clearly. You can see your own resilience take shape. You can find peace amidst chaos. Silent battles teach patience, endurance, and the art of waiting well. They show you that victory is not always immediate, but often gradual, unfolding one small step at a time. And they remind you that even when you feel invisible, your fight is significant. Your perseverance matters. Your sacred strength is real. It is also in silent battles that you learn to lean into God's timing rather than your own. When the world demands quick fixes and instant answers, the silence calls you to trust a process that you cannot fully see. It teaches you that sometimes waiting is not passive, but active faith. It's a daily choice to believe that God is working even when you can't feel it. That He is present even when all seems lost. And that His power is made perfect in your weakness. This realization changes the way you fight. It shifts your perspective from desperation to hope, from fear to faith, from isolation. Ultimately, silent battles reveal sacred strength because they invite you into a deeper relationship with God. They strip away superficialities and bring you to the core of your faith. They show you that you don't have to be perfect to be powerful. You don't have to have it all together to be used by God. You don't have to be seen by the world to be significant. Your value is found not in public victories, but in private faithfulness. And your sacred strength is born not from loud triumphs, but from the quiet, unwavering trust that carries you through every unseen battle. There is a profound truth in the way God handles those He calls for greater purposes. When God entrusts you with a calling, a vision, or a destiny, He doesn't simply hand it over and walk away. Instead, he begins a refining process. God refines those he trusts with more because he knows that greatness requires preparation, strength requires seasoning, and purpose requires purification. The refining isn't a punishment or a sign of failure, it's a mark of favor. It means God sees in you what others don't yet understand. It means he believes you have the capacity to carry more, to endure more, and to become more. Refining by nature is about removing the impurities that cloud the value of what is precious. Gold is not gold until it has been melted and purified through fire. Silver must be heated to separate the pure metal from the dross. And just like precious metals, your character, your faith, and your calling are purified through trials, tests, and challenges. When God trusts you with more, he also prepares you with more. He doesn't want to hand you a mantle too heavy to carry without first strengthening your heart, your mind, and your spirit. The process is intentional, even if it feels painful or confusing. Often, when the pressure intensifies and the trials deepen, it's easy to question why God allows such seasons, but those very seasons are the crucibles of growth. They teach endurance, develop patience, and build resilience. When you face difficulties, doubts, or delays, God is not distant. He is present, working meticulously to shape you. Each challenge is like a chisel stroke sculpting the masterpiece he's creating. Those struggles aren't evidence of being forgotten. They are evidence of being chosen. The ones God refines with more are not those who have arrived, but those who are on the path to arrival. They are people who have already proven faithfulness in small things, and now God is entrusting them with greater responsibility. The more can come in many forms: more responsibility, more influence, more trials, more opposition, and even more opportunity to demonstrate trust in him. The refining process often feels like being stretched beyond what you think you can bear. But it is precisely in that stretch that strength grows. God is expanding your capacity to hold greater purpose by stretching your faith. There is a spiritual dynamic at work here. When God entrusts you with more, he simultaneously allows situations that demand more from you. It's not to overwhelm, but to awaken parts of you that haven't been tested. It's a divine strategy to move you from potential to power, from promise to fulfillment. The refining fire may bring discomfort, but it also produces clarity. It burns away confusion, pride, and fear, leaving behind a clarity of vision, humility of heart, and boldness of spirit that can only come from God's hand. It's important to understand that refinement isn't always quick or easy. It requires patience. It requires surrender. It requires trusting that God's timing is perfect, even when it doesn't align with your own expectations. Sometimes the waiting feels long because the refining is deep. Sometimes the process is invisible to others, but God is at work behind the scenes, purifying your motives, strengthening your resolve, and preparing you for the impact you are about to make. God's refining work also teaches dependence. When the pressure mounts, when the challenges seem too great, and when you feel weak, it is then that God's strength becomes most evident. The refining process breaks self-reliance and builds reliance on him. It reminds you that your power isn't your own, but is a gift sustained by divine grace. This realization transforms your journey because you begin to see trials not as setbacks, but as setups for greater breakthrough. Another vital aspect of being refined by God is the development of character. God is less interested in what you can do and more interested in who you are becoming. The refining fire molds integrity, patience, kindness, and faithfulness. These qualities are the foundation of lasting impact. Without character, the more God entrusts can become a liability. But with character, the more it becomes a legacy. God's refining is therefore not just about what you achieve, but about who you become in the process. Sometimes the refining looks like loneliness. It feels like walking through a wilderness where no one else understands the battle you face. But these seasons teach you to find your strength in God alone, to hear His voice clearly, and to cling to His promises with unwavering faith. The isolation sharpens your spiritual senses, deepens your prayer life, and prepares you to lead others through similar struggles when the time comes. Ultimately, God's refining is a sign of His trust in you. When He gives you more to carry, it means He believes you can carry it. When He allows more fire, it means He believes your faith can withstand it. When He calls you to more responsibility, it means He believes in your readiness to fulfill it. And that trust itself is a source of strength, a divine affirmation that you are not alone and that your journey is under the watchful eye of the one who knows your beginning and your end. The refining process, though difficult, is designed to prepare you for a destiny bigger than you can imagine. It's a process that stretches your limits and expands your faith. It's a divine invitation to grow, to mature, and to step into the fullness of who God created you to be. And even when the refining fire feels overwhelming, it is a reminder that you are chosen, you are trusted, and you are being prepared for something greater. God's refining fire is a powerful sign of His trust and purpose for your life. Though challenging, it shapes your character, strengthens your faith, and expands your capacity. Embrace the process, knowing that every trial prepares you to carry more, walk stronger, and fulfill the destiny God has designed uniquely for you.
Hey, thanks for stopping by my YouTube channel. I hope you were blessed today. If you were, share this with somebody. Like and subscribe and leave me a comment. Let me know where you're watching from, what we can pray for you about. Hope to see you back here again really soon.